Thank you to all of the candidates who came to Stapleford today for the Mayoral Hustings. This was a joint venture by St. Helens Church and Stapleford Community Group.
And then so yes, and I'll ask you what these candidates what you think the mayor's going to do. Microphone to use. Hold it here. It's not going to come out from my phone, so you have to hold it there.
I may not need it.
Don't swear, it's just recording already. Yeah. Right, has everybody had a chance to write some questions down and put them in that box wherever it's disappeared to at the back? Yeah? Does anyone else want to add any questions, or have you all had a chance to do it? Okay, so I just want to say thank you everyone for coming. This is the third time I've done one of these hustings and I still ain't got a clue what I'm doing. So we've got 5 of the candidates here. No, we haven't. We've got 4. There's actually 6 standing. There was one of them I didn't know about until the other day, so I did invite the lady from the Lib Dems, but she got back to say she can't come and she's working. But she did say she's got a social media page, so if anybody wants her to ask her any questions, you can send them to her and she'll try and respond when she can. And then there would have been someone sat here. He did say he was coming, and I feel bad for forgetting his name. Alan. He did say he was coming, but he's not here, so I don't know what's cracked off there. These guys are going to introduce themselves. The vicar's got all your questions in the bucket thing somewhere, and what he's going to do is pull the questions out and ask them to the candidates. And then anything that the vicar, I don't even know what the questions are because I've not seen them. Anything that he thinks is inappropriate, and I'm sure there won't be, he'll put to one side. The candidates will be shown them at the end. And I say, there's a lot of people in this room that's got different political alliances or whatever, or no political alliances and that. But I just think, at the end of the day, I'd like to think everybody's there to do what they think's right. Just do it in different ways, don't we? So, and I'm sure everyone's going to be, do it properly and that, because we sometimes get things wrong as councillors and politicians and that, but sometimes we get things right, don't we? So we all try our best. Anyway, it's over to these guys, so I'm just going to sit there and shut up, because I didn't think it was right me being the one that asked the questions and that.
No problem. So we're going to start, the first thing we're going to do is go left to right and ask candidates to say who they are, where, what parties they represent, and why they want to be mayor. And then we're going to go start at the other end to go back and talk about and ask people about why what a mayor does, and then we'll open as in what you think the East Midlands mayor is going to be doing, and kind of what powers and things that they have, just so people can understand that. So that's kind of a fact bit, if you can, trying to say what an East Midlands mayor does, and then we'll open all the questions. So over to you, Claire, first. I've said up to 5 minutes, but
I'll try and keep within that. Hello, I'm Claire Ward. I'm Labour's candidate for the East Midlands mayor. So to give you a little bit of background on me, I've got, I think, the most experience to offer to the electorate across Nottinghamshire, in Derbyshire, Nottingham and Derby in this election. With over 30 years experience, not just in politics, not just in business, and not just in the public sector, but indeed in all 3. So my qualification, I was a solicitor originally, no longer practising. I was a Member of Parliament for 13 years. I represented Watford during the time of the Labour government from 1997 to 2010, and I also served in government. Gives me a huge amount of experience and understanding of some of the levers that we will continue to need to pull in order to get the best of deals for the East Midlands. I moved up here nearly 12 years ago to North Nottinghamshire to raise my family, to build a business, to work across the industries where I work, which is primarily in healthcare and in pharmacy, but also to join the board of Sherwood Forest Hospital Trust, where I sit as a non-executive director, and for the last 3 years have been the chair of that trust. So I bring a whole wide range of experience to this role. Why am I standing? Well, for most people, when I left politics in 2010 and went and got what most of you would say was a normal job and out in the real world, I didn't imagine that I would be coming back to stand on this, but I'll tell you the reason why. First of all, I am so frustrated at the state of our country. I think it's broken. I think this government have broken local government. They've broken our public services. They've broken our roads, and they're breaking our cars as a result of it. But there's so much that needs to be done. But more importantly, the potential of this region has been undersold and underinvested. And I look at my children, and your children and grandchildren, and I want more for them. I want more hope about what we can deliver. And I believe that they should have the best skills, the best opportunity for jobs, to be able to afford homes nearby and not feel that all of the opportunities mean that they have to go to London or somewhere else in order to get those. That's why I'm standing. And it's why I think the offer that I make, not just as somebody with that broad range of experience, who can get the job done and can get straight to it, but also somebody with a passion for wanting to see this East Midlands, the place where I live, the place I brought my children up. It is my home, and I want it to be the best place for all of us to live, to work, and to learn. And so when we go through some of those questions later, I will tell you more about what I'm offering and why I think we can make this the region that we are all proud to call our home.
Ruth. Okay, that's Frank from the Green Party. Use a microphone. Can everyone hear everybody? Do we need a microphone? Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for turning out and listening to what we have to say as your candidates. This is an election which not many people are aware of, and so you being here today, you spreading the word when you get back home is hugely appreciated. I can stand here, as I have in many other hustings, and tell you the dire state that our country is in. The East Midlands particularly, the lowest levels of public investment last year. But as a young person who lives here, a 26-year-old who doesn't own his own home, who sees job opportunities outside of this region, I don't want to get stuck down in that. I want to offer you something more hopeful, a vision, something that you can look forward to and be proud of. A vision that you can go into the ballot box, you can go into the polling station on the 2nd of May and tick that box knowing that you've done the right thing for your children and for those that come after you. I'm offering that vision because it's what I need and my generation needs. We can bring buses back into public control. We can recentre our education around sustainable, future-ready technologies. We can build affordable, sustainable homes. We can be radical and we can offer something different without London telling us what to do. But only if you vote for somebody who isn't from one of the established parties, who isn't whipped by those upstairs, and someone who's free to listen to your concerns and is actively doing so by committing to set up citizens' assemblies. That vote is for me and for my green industrial revolution. The industrial revolution began in Cromford in the 1700s. I'm proud of what our region's achieved. And now, as we are in this economic chaos that we've been in the last 15 years of austerity, we can again unleash our creativity, our innovation, to bring more opportunity to our region. Whether you're a Green voter or not, you can see that the economy is headed in one direction. We have to transition and we have to get ready for the future. By voting Green, by voting for me, a local candidate born in Chesterfield, raised in Derby, educated in Nottingham, and now elected in Derbyshire as the first ever Green, you are choosing to put the East Midlands on the map. You are making us ready for the future. Our manufacturers will be supported to transition, to make sure that we can provide for our own nation, but also across the world. Our children will be given the best start to life and able to live in our region and not priced out. That's what we have to be voting for. We have to be voting for something different. And I stand here as someone who didn't want to get into politics. I'm not a politician by trade. I wanted to be a creative. I wanted to go and follow that path. And I took time after my education and I worked in the real world and I saw the state of society and I thought this wasn't good enough. And so I decided to stand up for my community, and one thing led to another, and here I am today, standing against a county council leader in Ben Bradley, who's complaining that the potholes aren't fixed despite it being his responsibility. Stood against a Labour candidate who's been in government and now coming back to a Labour leader who's cut their green pledges and U-turning on just about everything else. Our country is in a dire state and needs a fresh voice. We can do that by electing a strong mayor, someone who's free to stand up for our communities and will speak out. That's me. I won't be told what to do by London. I won't be told what to do by the 2 Conservative unitary authorities and the 2 Labour unitary authorities that will be part of this deal. Instead, I'll have to use compromise, as I have done in my role as an elected councillor in North East Derbyshire. I have to work together with people, and that's the best way to achieve things. That's why my party stands up and calls out for a different voting system. That's why I call for a citizens' assembly. Because compromise is the way forward. Working together is how we get things done, and we best serve our communities. I'm not here to tell you what to think, I'm here to listen and to lead. Thank you very much.
Hi, I am Matt Relf. I'm the independent candidate in all of this. I'm currently the executive lead member for Growth, Regeneration and Local Planning at Ashfield District Council. I've also run my own business in the local area since 2009. My background is in IT. But also I sit on various boards. I'm the only candidate, for instance, that sits on the Derby-Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire Local Enterprise Partnership that will be merging into the new combined authority. Now, I was elected back first in 2018 as an independent councillor, and I joined one of the very few independent-run councils in the whole of the UK. And I think it would be fair to say that we've shown how fantastically well that can work. We're one of the most successful councils in the county. We're also the most successful council in the whole of the UK for bidding for regeneration funding. I've now secured over £110 million of additional regen funding coming into Ashfield, and I want to bring that experience and that skill set to the whole of the East Midlands. Now, one of the reasons I'm staying in politics is because I think I agree with that the system is broken. Claire is quite right that the country is broken, but I don't lay that purely at the feet of the Conservatives, although they have done a pretty dreadful job in the last 14 years. This has been a steady decline from prior to that, because I think the approach that the main parties have taken to politics of whipping people into agreeing with them rather than listening to their members, because I don't understand why leaders cannot stand up in front of their own party and say, this is my idea, I think it's a good idea and this is why. And if they say no, you don't say, well, I'm making it a good idea and forcing you to vote for it. You should listen to that feedback. And by being independent, I'm completely open and always available to that feedback without that influence from London saying, no, you need to agree with this national party or, policy or you need to disagree with it. Now you asked, what is this actual mayoral role about? And I don't think it's something that has been at all well advertised. I think there is a huge amount of the population that don't even know that this election is coming. The combined authority is going to be bringing powers and money down from Westminster to the local area. It is going to be made up of 4 constituent authorities that are going to be the 2 city councils and the 2 county councils, and the mayor will be chairing that role. So they will be influencing this as well. And so you need a mayor who can work cooperatively and productively with people from other parties. And this is again something that I have significant experience with. You know, I've worked with Ben on the devolution deal as part of the Economic Prosperity Committee. It is the Conservative and Labour leaders of that committee that elected me to be their representative on the D2N2 Local Enterprise Partnership Board. I have experience of working well with others. So the main areas that power and money is coming down is around transport. So we've got the opportunity with the right mayor to overhaul our public transport system and make sure we've got an interconnected transport system that works across all modes of transport. Now this is something I have a huge amount of experience with. I designed and built all the online ticketing systems for Gatwick, Heathrow and Stansted Express. I've also spent 10 years of my career mobilising large highways asset management contracts across the UK. I'm the only candidate who actually knows how to fix a pothole. We've got business support, and business engagement is going to be coming down as well. So part of the D2N2 that I mentioned is going to be merging in is the Growth Hub, which is offering business support. Now I want to take that resource that's coming in, but supercharging it with better collaboration with districts, boroughs, universities, colleges, private providers across the whole region, so that we've got a single place where businesses come to the combined authority that we can then tell you all the support you've got on offer for your business without you having to go and try and find all of these different disparate places on your own. We've got adult skills coming to the local area to make decisions around that. Now it's coming with big strings attached to that, which is really frustrating. I don't call it the adult skills budget, I call it the failed Conservative schools policy budget, because 90% of that budget at the minute will have to continue to be spent on getting 19 to 23-year-olds up to level 2 English and maths. That is an absolute indictment of the schools policy we've got at the minute, that we've got so many people coming out of schools without those skills, that we are spending so much of our adult education budget on that. It is a waste. We should be using that adult education budget on supporting people of all ages on a lifelong journey through re-skilling. And then finally, we've got housing strategy. We can pull together a better policy of planning across the entire region so that we're building the right homes for people that are energy efficient, low carbon and affordable, so that people can have the homes that they need. And I really look forward to taking your questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt. And Ben, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ben Bradley. I'm the Conservative candidate in this contest, and as has been said, I am the leader of Nottinghamshire County Council. I'm also the Member of Parliament for Mansfield. And that means when it comes to trying to navigate our political system, when it comes to both trying to influence government and to get things done on a local level, I've got real direct experience both of what we can deliver and what we have delivered here in Nottinghamshire, but also what the challenges are, what the problems are, what the reasons are, why sometimes we can't fix things locally, and why we need further powers and further support to be able to tackle key problems like our roads, like our transport system. And that's why I've spent the last 2.5 years talking to government and negotiating those powers and funds. When I became the leader of the County Council, I set about rebuilding relationships between council leaders because, truth be told, they didn't really talk to each other across the 16, 18 different councils around Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire. It wasn't efficient, it wasn't effective, and we've got to do things in partnership if we're going to be effective in what we deliver. So we've rebuilt those relationships to the extent that we've been able to agree and negotiate and work with government this package of nearly £4 billion investment into our part of the world. Now for me, that investment is really important to tackle some particular problems because you're right, I am in charge of the roads and I see on a daily basis how difficult it is, how limited our powers and budgets are currently to be able to tackle what is a massive, massive issue for local residents. You can see when we go around our region and you see where we've done massive resurfacing projects. It's beautiful, it brings a tear to my eye in the current context, of how difficult it is to get these things done currently. They can do a really good job, but we haven't got enough resource to do it everywhere that it needs to be done and when it needs to be done. So we've negotiated through this package a 4-fold increase in our transport budget to be able to do more of it, to be able to tackle that problem. Because for me, this deal is about some of those issues where, despite the roles I've got, I haven't got the power to get stuff sorted. And this gives us the power and the funding to get these things sorted, whether that is the roads, whether that is our town centres. The other one I've always struggled with is town centre regeneration. I represent Mansfield, and during that time I've got a record of delivery. We're rebuilding 4 schools, we're rebuilding a local hospital, we've got a new university campus, we're delivering all sorts of amazing long-term improvement. I've been able to sort the town centre out. And again, it comes back to, even when we get the money, £72 million of levelling up funding into the town that I represent, I have to hand it to somebody else, to the district council, who doesn't have the capacity or the expertise or the resource to deliver major projects. So this takes the funding that currently is in London and the powers that currently rest really locally, where perhaps we haven't got the resource or capacity or the expertise to deliver, and it brings them together in the middle, where we can actually tackle these problems in a coherent and strategic way and get things delivered, where under the current system that's really difficult. Well, I got into politics because, for the same reason we all get into politics, the main thing that gets everybody wound up, apart from potholes, which is bins. And the district council where I lived in Hucknall at the time didn't collect my bins, and I became a local councillor because I wanted to sort it out. That's always been my mantra. I'm not a particularly political person, and the role of mayor is not a particularly political role. You see them around the region, they work together cross-party and they lobby government together. Andy Burnham and Andy Street of opposite parties in Manchester and the West Midlands work together on key projects because they represent their place, not their party. And that's the way I intend to work as well. In fact, I've been part of, as I've said, bringing those relationships together across this region, negotiating this deal on behalf of our local area. And having got that experience, both of running a transport authority, of the challenges that we have in our highways, and of trying to negotiate deals and outcomes to fix those problems, I think that makes me well placed to deliver the solutions. This has come about in part because of the work I've done in recent years to bring this investment to our part of the world. And where I've been going backwards and forwards between local and national, in some ways, I've been playing almost the role of the mayor in the absence of a regional mayor. lining up national policy and local delivery to get things done. That's resulted in over £25 billion of investment into Nottinghamshire over the last 3 years, including this deal, including one of the biggest clean energy projects anywhere in the UK. So I've got a record of bringing in that investment, I've got a record of working with government, and I've got a record of bringing partners together on a local level to get things done. I think the role of the Mayor, the powers that it brings and the funding that it brings means we can supercharge that, we can do more, and we can fix some of those challenges in areas where I haven't currently got the power or the funds or whatever it may be to get those things done. It can be a solution to some of these problems, which is why I think it's really exciting. So looking forward to your thoughts and questions on it. Thank you for coming today. And one thing I'll say in my final 5 seconds is whatever your view of who you think is the best candidate at the end of today, please do go away and tell people this is happening, because it's really important that people engage with it, understand it, and that people come and vote on the 2nd of May and have their say. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you to all 4 candidates. My microphone's off now. But thank you to all 4 candidates for what you've said so far. We'll take a pause for a moment. Now, you might be wondering what an East Midland Mayor does, even after that brief introduction. And our first question kind of helps us with that, asking one, what funding will the East Midlands Mayor have? And also, what would you, as the Mayor, what would your priority be? So I think we're going to start, well, we started this end, Ben's just finished, so let him catch his breath. So we're going back into we start in the middle this time. And maybe Matt or Frank, rock, paper, scissors, or which one do you go first?
It's tempting to.
Go on, Matt, go on. Frank, let's go. Any more questions, just let me know. And I'll...
Thank you. So this deal, as outlined, gives us £38 million for 38 years, every single year. That's what I said, isn't it? 38 million for 30 years? Yeah, thanks. We'll agree on that, because that's what it is. That's the deal we're faced with. I don't think that that's enough as a starter. The funding that we've been given is part of a deal from government. We get 1.5 billion, has been talked about already, for our transport, which we will use to bring buses back into public control. I'm the only candidate that's committed to do that from day one. But we need to get more funding. We need to go back to government, explain the situation that we've had here in the East Midlands, the least levels of funding in the East Midlands last year than anywhere in the country, despite being 5 times larger than the West Midlands. That's an absolute disgrace. That's a failure of government. That's a failure of local politicians and a failure of those nationally as well. And it's unacceptable. And someone has to call that out. So I've said on day one, the first thing I'll do is write up a bill. We'll go to the Chancellor and we'll say, this is the money that we should have been owed. Levelling Up hasn't delivered for our communities. This devolution deal is just the start. And we need more to be able to deliver for people, to get our public services up to scratch. And to do more than just fix the potholes which should have been fixed already, but to actually plan and prepare for the future, to make sure that our people who have the lowest levels of higher education qualifications have the access to adult education, to make sure that our homes, which are unaffordable, which aren't being built, which aren't up to scratch, really are, and that we're building positively and affordably for young people to be able to buy. This is a huge opportunity for us to invest in our communities, and we have to take it. And we have to set ourselves a challenge. And that's why I'm standing here, offering you a green industrial revolution. A radical challenge for us to reach. It's something we can do, something we will do. We can support our manufacturers in transitioning. There's so much that this role offers, and so much I'm excited to get into. But you have to realise that this is just the start. This authority has just been created. And that's being offered to us is a little bit of scrap meat to try and plug holes, fill gaps, or even potholes. It's not enough. We have to go back to government, demand more, demand better, to be able to invest properly in our region.
Thank you. So, same question to Matt. What is the money available, and what do you want to do with it?
Yeah. So, as Frank's already outlined, there is an annual amount coming in, but there are also big pots of money that Ben has referred to. But I will highlight that Ben is obfuscating some of the origins of this by saying he's secured extra transport money. 1.5 billion of that is through the cancellation of HS2. That was money that was already earmarked for investment in transport in our region. It's just now changing what the delivery of that is. It's not new money. But also, I'm sure Claire will point this out as well, it's not actually hit the bank account yet. It's not actually guaranteed going to actually arrive. It's been promised, but we've seen what happens with promises before. So, as Frank's also talked about, we need to go and ask for more. We have been left behind in the East Midlands for funding on so many fronts. As a fantastic example, transport, for instance. We have been the lowest at the bottom of the table of per capita spending on transport for years now. If we brought the East Midlands up to the UK average, we would be getting an extra £1.3 billion per year, not one-off settlements. Now, I have the track record of being able to go to government with the evidence base that you need for this. You shouldn't be just going down and saying, I demand reparations. No, you need to go down and show what you are going to spend it on and the return on investment the country will get for it. Because that's how you unlock money from civil servants to then go and sell it to ministers. That's how it works down there. That's what we've got to do, and I've shown how well that can work. So in terms of my priorities, overhaul of transport. We need to get our public transport system working properly so that it is an appealing choice for people to use, so we can get more people using it. Because the more people we can get using it, the better it is for the environment, the better it is for public transport, because there is more money coming back into that system, the better service it's got to offer. But we need to be acutely aware of the diverse nature of our region. What's going to work in Nottingham city centre is not going to be the same solution that works in the high peaks. And I've got the experience to deal with that. There's also, I've got loads more I could say on that, but I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll give Ben the same question. So the money and what your priorities will be.
Yeah, so there's two reasons why this is important and what it brings to our part of the world. First, it brings £4 billion of additional investment over and above what we get now. And that is really important because we do, and we have had for decades actually, the lowest levels of infrastructure investment of any part of the country. We've got a lot of catching up to do. Those areas that have regional mayors, particularly Greater Manchester and the West Midlands, get significantly more funding than us. And I don't want us as a region to be playing in the second tier. We should be a Premier League. We should be at the table with all of those people and get the very best of everything. So that's why we've worked to bring about this deal. Now, some of that funding is about economic development. Just over £1 billion is for investment, not to taxpayer fund investment, but to seed fund, to be able to work with businesses, to match fund, to invest and get a return that we can then invest again, to help grow our economy, to help improve jobs, support businesses, regenerate town centres. Part of that funding is transport funding. We talked about £1.5 billion over 5 years. That's roughly a fourfold increase in our transport budget, and that means we can make significant inroads in fixing our roads, in improving our bus services, in working with rail providers to get better timetables, to reopen old railway lines. That's a huge, huge amount of money in a relatively short period of time as these major infrastructure projects go, for us to really be able to do more. The second thing is not just the money, actually. People often talk about the structure. Is it a layer? Is it an expensive thing? How will it work? Actually, the structure is really important because part of the reason that we've had the lowest levels of investment over such a long time is our complicated structures. We've got multiple tiers of government, and if anyone wants to invest in the East Midlands, then they will get 18 different councils who give them 18 different answers about what their priorities are. There is no clear regional set of priorities, and government want to talk to a coherent voice who can say, here is our plan, here are the priorities, here's what we want you to invest in. And the private sector want the same. They don't want to have to talk to 18 competing authorities. They want to talk to one place where they can get some sense and some priorities and some investment in our region. So the structure will be really important in us growing that pie, in us bringing more investment, creating both job and training opportunities, but also investment and regeneration opportunities in our communities.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Okay, so Claire, over to you.
Thank you. So you've heard a lot about the powers, and those powers for the devolution deal have been agreed across the political parties in order to get to this point, including Labour-controlled city councils. But for me, it's really important what we actually do. And so whilst we might have some individual streams of funding, the long-term investment fund that you've heard about, the transport fund, funds for homes, funds for skills, what we really need to be doing is making those work so that we can then go back to government and ask them for more powers and more devolution, show that we can actually deliver on those. And I certainly want to work with government, whether it be this government or indeed if we get a Labour government in the future, I will be wanting to work with a Labour government to invest even more into this region. So the priorities for me in terms of transport, well, whatever that money is at 1.5 billion, if that is the money, remembering, of course, it was promised to HS2 the week before, so we'll just have to see whether it does hit the bank account. I want to certainly start to support that resurfacing of roads. And I say support because actually the truth is, after May, the responsibility for those roads will still sit with the county council. That won't change. So actually, the more the mayor will be doing is being able to direct, there's opportunities for some of that funding to be directed, but the county councils will still have that statutory responsibility to deliver. So if I become mayor, Ben will still be the leader of the county council. So I will be making that case, but at least he's heard it now, right the way through this election period. But it's also about buses. Now, we know that in the city of Nottingham, they've got a fantastic bus network, the municipal bus network. But in other parts, some of it's good, with good providers, some of it's terrible across the region. But I don't want to wait for the powers of franchising. I want to make sure that we start by engaging with the bus companies as a first point to get them to do it. And if we don't get that correctly, we will move to franchising.
And on that note, the next question is about buses. So we've had some big picture questions. So now it's coming down to the nitty-gritty. Ruth just kind of finished on buses, but actually one of the questions, there's several questions on buses, so I'll merge them into one question. Our current I4 bus service doesn't run, doesn't go to the new bus station in Nottingham. How would we address that? So that's local buses. And another question on buses again was, how would you improve the infrastructure of buses across Nottingham and Derbyshire? Because again, those are kind of things that people want to know. So again, you've got a couple of minutes each on that. And this time, so we started, so we go back to the middle again, but this time we start with Matt. Got 2 minutes. Buses, how will you improve the infrastructure? So include buses and rails.
Yeah. So a big part of this is working with the existing providers. Franchising gets talked about a lot, but it's taken Andy Burnham 8 years to get that going. I, for one, want to start improving things sooner than that. So I'm going to be working with the existing providers. And if that means that we as a combined authority need to invest into them to improve their services, then I'm happy to do that. But that will need to come with absolute cast iron promises of the improvement actually being delivered. Otherwise, we're clawing that money back. So we want to get on with that. Now, a big part of that is also going to be about how we hook up modes of transport. It really frustrates me that there is very little work that goes on between bus companies and between tram and train companies to actually make sure that timetables coordinate. I mean, for crying out loud, even the train companies aren't very good within their own timetabling, do that very well. I mean, I've waited 50 minutes before at Nottingham Station when I've been catching the train down to London because as I come into Nottingham, I've watched the London train pull out. So we need to be looking and working with those partners, and if they aren't delivering, then actually going and working around them by using public provision to fill the gaps where they aren't willing to work. Now, one thing I'm also very keen to look at is more of our on-demand bus services. Scheduled bus services are fantastic where there is a density of population and a density of demand for that to work. But out onto rural areas and also out of hours, on-demand bus services done well can deliver a much better service for people so that we can actually have 24/7 bus connectivity in cities. We can have out into rural areas, it will actually come out to a village and pick you up from your village, even if there is no existing bus service there as well. And I want to bring that all together under an integrated ticketing and information package so that you can look at, I want to go from there to there, how do I do it? What are my options? Here's the active travel route, here's the taxi options, here's the bus and tram and train options, and how you can then buy that ticket and do it all in one hit.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. Shall we go, where should we go next? So Claire again, we almost finished on it earlier on, so.
Yeah. Fine, so I'll carry on my transport piece. So in terms of buses, as I say, I want to be able to work initially with the bus companies, and if we don't get it right with them, we will move to franchising. And the Labour Party nationally have announced that if they get into government, they will make that process easier, because I don't want to have to wait for 8 years to be able to get to that point. I want to be able to start that immediately. In terms of roads, we'll definitely passport some more money through to make sure we start on that quality road resurfacing. I don't want people to have to constantly refer into the county council their invoices for fixing their cars. In terms of the integration of transport, we do need integrated bus, rail and tram. We need the tap and go so that it's much easier right across the region. We need affordable fares across the bus and the rail that we control and those trams. But we also need to think about active travel. There's lots more people want to be able to use walking, cycling routes, and we need to invest and work with local communities who know their areas the best to determine where those should be. And for our car users, we want to encourage more people to get into electric vehicles without that range anxiety that people talk about. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is if we're able to invest in some of those and to support the development, particularly in rural areas, of some of the car clubs that allow people to be able to use electric vehicles when they need to. I do think on-demand services can be of good use if you get them right, but if you actually connect them to the places that they need to be. But we need to resource that appropriately. And again, we need to engage with the local community to determine where they want those services to go. So for me, ultimately, it's about getting an integrated and affordable and reliable service of transport. And that, I think, is a key part of what we should be doing.
Thank you very much, Claire. That's Ben, so question, and then so you can finish this one.
So, speak from experience when it comes to transport, because unlike other candidates, I'm the only one who actually runs public transport. So when it comes to the role of the mayor, that experience is really important. And actually, for all the challenges we have around, and financial pressures in particular around our transport network, we run a relatively good service comparatively around the country. We still have some of the highest levels of transport investment here compared to any other equivalent council in the UK. And whilst Nottingham City are cutting their buses, we're still investing in them. But the funding here gives us the opportunity not just to try and manage the service under pressure, but to invest and improve and expand. So I've got 4 transport priorities. One is the roads, which we've touched on. Claire's analysis of the role of the mayor in the roads isn't quite right, so hopefully we'll come back to roads a little bit more in the future. Active travel is another, particularly in our rural areas, where we've got real requirement or real desire for better cycling and walking routes for our visitor economy and to support in the Peak District Forest in particular. But the question focuses on buses and trains. So there are several things I want to do. One is where we've had those financial pressures and services haven't been viable in many places post-COVID. Bus transport numbers, passenger numbers still haven't got back up to levels that they used to be. We can support our bus operators to improve timetables, to reduce competition, to have a more joined-up network. So more services are financially and commercially viable for them to run, and where we've got more funding to subsidise those that aren't. I want to return some of those bus services that have been lost because of that commercial reality in recent years post-COVID, so that we can bring some of those services back. And I also, Matt talked about on-demand transport. Again, I am actually rolling out on-demand transport around our region. We have, I think, 6 on-demand transport zones now and 3 or 4 more to come around our part of the world to ensure that even in the most rural areas, everybody has access to a bus that will take them to the nearest town or bus station or train station. I think that's really, really important that nobody is isolated. So there's loads we can do. I'm already doing it to some extent in small part. But what we need now is that significant additional funding that we've secured through this deal to help us not just manage a service, but to invest and improve it.
Thank you, Ben. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you. This is something I'm really passionate about and I've got a plan for, because I'm not a car owner, and therefore we need to get something that works for everyone. I think often we talk about buses, trains, trams and cycling and active travel, and it's talked about as if it's dirty or if it's not necessary, and that's not the way that it should be talked about, because it's so important for so many people, whether it be young people, elderly people or disabled community. It's so important that we have good, reliable services. Electric vehicles still get stuck in traffic, and so what we have to do to ease our congestion problems is get more people moving together. That means having really good public transport systems. I'm not going to wait and do a litmus test on the buses to see if the private companies can do a little bit better when we have a mayor. We have had years of failure, and our services should be directly accountable to me as your democratically elected mayor. There is no point you electing somebody who can't have control over your bus services when you come and complain to us. We need to be able to make direct decisions for you. So bring the buses back into public control straight away, get the process started as quickly as possible. Make sure that they are sustainable, modern, affordable. I'm going to bring in an innovative subscription-style service so that people have incentives to use their buses. There'll be live updates, integrated ticketing across all of our services. Our timetabling will be linked up to your bus. You can walk or cycle to your bus stop, you can get your bus to the train, and the departure times all link up. It makes sense, it happens across a large part of Europe, and it should be happening here as well. Accessibility is really important. We need to have buses that can be accessed by people, including through ticketing systems. I've seen in Nottingham that our trams, the way that our ticketing stations are designed, are so difficult for so many people to use. That has to change. And finally, on-demand services. Do not accept them. That is a cop-out. That is not what we need. I live in a rural area. Am I going to take my chances, walk down to the bus stop, get my phone out, try and order the bus to come and visit me and pick me up? No, it doesn't work. I need to know that I can go and use that bus and it will come and collect me and get me where I'm going. We need reliability.
Thank you. Now, next question has been asked in a variety of ways by a variety of people. So I'm going to use one of them to ask that question for you. So candidates have demonstrated their political and business experience and roles, and if elected, how will you manage this new role, and do you intend to lay down any other roles in order to concentrate on the hope of the promise for this region? Anyone dying to start on that one? Go on, Bruce. I think Claire's got this one.
I don't mind, you start. You start, I'll go.
It's simple, yeah. This is going to be my only job, nothing else. I'm going to be dropping everything else, other than I intend to continue as a backbencher representing my local ward, because I'm very proud to have been representing my local ward since 2018. But I'm going to be dropping all of my cabinet responsibilities, I'm going to be stopping all of my business activities, I'm just going to be focused on being mayor full-time.
Quick and easy answer. So I'm Chair of Sherwood Forest Hospital Trust, working in the NHS. If I'm elected as Mayor, I will be leaving the NHS. This is a big job. It will require my focus and it will be my priority.
Yeah, this role requires the full attention, whoever does the role, and that's absolutely what I'm committed to doing. And I'm going to lay out now, to enhance your question, a yes or no to the final candidate to answer this. The person that it's sent to is positioned at Ben, who is our county council leader. He is an MP and he wants to be mayor as well. And I'll ask you, yes or no, if you are elected as mayor, will you resign immediately as a member of Parliament for Mansfield? Yes or no?
You've got full 2 minutes, Ben. So
let me lay it out, because I have done many times in public already. It's not a secret. So if I am elected as the region's mayor, you can't be both the mayor and a county councillor who is a constituent member of the mayor's authority. So my role as the leader of the county council would end if I'm elected automatically, and we've got contingencies in place within the county council to decide who would lead the authority. In terms of being a member of Parliament, I don't think it would be the right thing to resign on the day, and I've said this publicly, because actually what would happen, because of the timeframes, is that you would end up with then a Mansfield by-election at the cost of £500,000 to taxpayers in July, only for a general election then to be called probably 6 weeks later at the beginning of September. So actually, it would not make sense at all for the people of Mansfield or the taxpayers for me to resign on the day. And actually in any other job, if you were in a corporate job and you wanted to hand in your notice, you can't just leave the following day. You have to work a notice period and work your way out. So I don't think there's anything unreasonable in that. What I will say is that this will be my one job, my sole focus, that I will deliver the full works in terms of working as a regional mayor and nothing else. But I don't think it is right to cost the taxpayer £500,000 and force the people of Mansfield to have 2 general election ballots in the space of a couple of months for the sake of ticking Frank's box.
And they could have better representation.
Managing it properly and sensibly for the taxpayer, and the best thing for the taxpayer is the right way to do that.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Next question. There you go. This is the one to ask for. There's several which link up with this one. So there's one about a spur road from the A52 from Chetwynd, but also, so I'll link it with this question. For many years there's been discussion about developing both the Toton site and the Chetwynd Barracks. Promises it would provide housing, employment, medical and educational opportunities, but nothing has yet materialised. And if that does happen, the follow-up question is, there's a need for the A52 to have some adaptation and changes to make that accessible. Is that something that is in your plans? And that would be, we just ended with Ben, so let's start with Frank, shall we, this time?
Transport needs a huge overhaul, and part of that is listening to you and our communities and seeing how we do that best. Coming into office, the first thing we'll do is bring our buses back, improve our public transport, but we also need to look at our roads and how that works. I want to do a huge plan, looking at what we've got across the East Midlands, a land spatial plan for everything that I set out, but also looking at our roads and how we deliver best for you. I think we make sure that our county councils are held to account, making sure that the roads we've got are good enough to get around, and making sure that any link-ups that are needed are done. I don't want to make promises today about what those are going to be, because I want to listen to you as your mayor and make sure that we're doing what's best for our communities, how public transport is going to work, how we're going to bring that all together. It has to be done cohesively, and it has to be done with a plan, and that will take time. I think citizens' assemblies are really important to make sure that we know how our communities are best served and how we can best deliver for you. Thank you.
If you want to come to that next, go on, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, all of the stuff around Chetwynd Barracks and Toton and everything has been somewhat of a disaster of planning, in my opinion, of the way the Conservatives have managed HS2. The fact that it was proposed to come into Toton and have that whole redevelopment of that area, then they moved it to East Midlands Parkway, and now it's been cancelled altogether. It's not the way to do things. But in terms of what we're going to do moving forward, that is for me to help facilitate, but not decide. I am very keen to make sure that all of your locally elected members at district level, at county level, at city level are inputting into what is right for the local area. I think one of the disasters we have of politics at the minute is this centralised view of we know best from London or we know best from Nottingham. We need to be listening to the input from the local area. So I'm not going to say one way or another how we're going to move forward, because I want that input, I want to listen, I want to make sure that we have got that input from your local decision makers who are listening more closely to you than I ever can, covering 1.6 million electorates. So we need to use that localism that's already in place and utilise it to the best we can. But yes, I think we need to get on with some of these projects. They've been languishing for too long. We need to figure out the clear vision of what we're going to do in these things and get on with delivering it.
Thank you. Claire?
Yeah, so Toton has been part of the local plan for a long time, and obviously the disruption of HS2 has caused some challenge there, but I know that the commitment of the Labour Council in Broxtowe to making sure that that is a site that is developed for the community with great opportunity. Obviously, we clearly need to make sure that there is a safe, sustainable access into it with supported areas where you can utilise the land around it for the best opportunities for the local community. And to do that, we need to clearly make sure that the local council are engaging with the developers, that they are using that funds that come from developers to support the infrastructure that's needed for the best use of that Toton site. Now, I know you've got a really good Labour council here in Broxtowe. It's doing some great work, not just in housing homes, new homes, in developments across the high streets, and for that reason, I'm keen to make sure that the local, the mayor, but also the combined county authority utilises the relationships with our borough and district councils, because they are closest of all to the people in our region, so that we can work through them wherever possible to deliver what communities need most.
Thank you. Same question to Ben.
So here's a good example of where that knowledge of working on our current regional development projects means that I can actually answer that question rather than go off on a massive tangent and talk about something else. So Toton and Chetwynd, as the county council, are actually the landowner of half of that site. currently. For the last year, 18 months, we've been working on regional master plans across lots of major sites around Nottinghamshire, including Ratcliffe-on-Soar, including West Burton Power Station up at Bassetlaw, and including Towton. And actually, whatever your view of HS2, whether you loved it or hated it, it was one of the uncertainties actually around what we could deliver around Towton and when. So now that we have that certainty, what that means is effectively that we can get on with it. And with the additional powers and funds that come to the Mayor, actually we can begin to deliver on some of that long-term vision. So it's in Broxtow's local plan. I work very closely with Milan and the council here on developing ideas around that for a mixed-use development that is both housing but also innovation. Research, business development, working with the University of Nottingham, who will develop part of the campus on that site. And now instead of HS2, which obviously isn't happening, we've got this significant local transport fund to finish off what is a part-funded currently mainline railway station into the site to consider what the tram access looks to the site. So effectively the development doesn't change, we just need to reconsider what the transport and access routes look like into that site. And over the last, getting on for 2 years, residents in and around Towton, residents groups have been part of that consultation and engagement about what that might look like. So it's a huge project. The Mayor brings additional funding and strategic planning powers to bring partners together and deliver it. It's a really exciting opportunity for us actually, and again, I'm the only candidate in this process who is engaged not just in that site and the background to it, the development of it and understands it, but also on all of our major regional development sites that have been part of our Freeports, development companies, investment zones over the last 2 years.
Thank you. Just having a quick time check. Okay, that's fine. And if you've got any more questions and that needed, please write them down and give them to me, and we'll mention the candidates. We're on the last few questions. And so, question. This one is a question that I think Matt began to answer about when he first talked about being a mayor, which was something to do with, I think most people will not understand the full structure of all the different bodies at work across our region. So there's a question here about the East Midlands Development Company. Will it be subsumed within the new Mayoral Development Corporation? What are the current functions around? So it should be a very short question and answer on this one. And as Matt began on it, I think I'll give Matt the first question on this one. What will happen when a mayor starts with these other things that are happening?
Yeah, I mean, I love that your optimism that this is a simple answer.
It is. I'm always optimistic.
Yeah. No, there are a huge number of different bodies around Development Corporation, around Freeport, around Midlands Engine. There's all sorts of things that are going to need to be interacting. And that's the big stuff, but there's also more regional stuff around the universities, around D2N2, around Marketing Nottinghamshire, Marketing Derby. You know, there are all sorts of different bodies that we've got to pull together to make sure that we have a cohesive approach for the region, collaborative working, and it's that chairing role that is going to be the real success of this, is having a mayor who can bring together all of these disparate organisations, all these different personalities, and get them working together to a common goal for what is right for the region. And again, this is an area where I have a track record. I sit on the Discover Ashfield board that's been the model for all of our funding within Ashfield, and we've brought together organisations that have traditionally been rivals to one another in education, around the voluntary sector and so forth, that have now working so well collaboratively that we've delivered so much. I mean, a fantastic example of that is with the bidding that we did for the Towns Fund, where we were told we could bid up to £50 million for the Towns Fund. We put together a package of projects across a whole range of sectors with this partnership working, that actually added up to 62.6 billion. We were told, don't bother bidding for 50 million, there's no way you'll get 50 million. We actually put in a bid for 62.6 million, we got awarded 62.6 million. So by bringing that collaborative working together is going to be the secret to this, of how we can go and make this work for everybody.
Thank you. Same question to Ben.
Yeah, so we have got lots of complicated regional bodies, as Matt described. People often ask me, is this an additional regional layer of bureaucracy? The reality is we've got so many regional bodies already that this should actually simplify and organise our regional layer. Various elements like the local enterprise partnership will roll into it. 4 transport authorities will become 1 transport authority. There's lots of things that should make this more efficient and effective as we work together under a shared plan instead of 18 different plans that very often is the case. The question mentions the development company, and there are various bodies like that are all roughly the same thing, that are about bringing business investment into our area, giving incentives for businesses to want to invest private money in our area, and that come with capital investment, money to put infrastructure in that helps us to create jobs and opportunities. So the development company, the investment zones and the free port are good examples of those bodies. Now I sit on the board of all of those bodies. So when it comes to integrating them into this new structure, I'm well placed, knowing all of those partners, knowing all of those organisations and how they work, to be able to build a structure here that brings them all in together. But they have different geographies, they have different opportunities. The development company is the one that ties it all together, because that's the one that has strategic regional planning powers, that can look at the whole of our region and map out which are the really important sites for the development. What's the transport connectivity that we need around those sites? What's the skills and training opportunity that we need to support the jobs that we will bring in on those sites? That's the role of the development company, so it will form an integral part of the combined authority. And again, I'm the only one of the candidates who's been involved in that, the master planning work that I talked about around Toton, that can actually really help us to come up with a much more sensible long-term plan for growth, development, housing, and everything else around our whole region.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Frank or go for it?
So this is about leadership. It's about bringing people together and making sure that we have compromise, that we have your voices heard and the voices of our business, our developers in one room, and that we are doing as best we can to provide for everyone. That's the way that I do politics. It's the way I believe politics should function. All too often it doesn't. It's about who you want in the room and how you want those discussions shaped. We've heard from Ben about his experience in all of these boards. Well, look at what our country is like. Look at what our region is like. We have been left behind. Things are crumbling. Things are broken. It is time to get somebody else in the room with a fresh vision, with a fresh approach, and who isn't party political, who isn't going to be whipped to say one thing or another, who isn't going to only bring their mates into the room, but somebody who wants genuinely the best for our region and for the future. That's the reason why I'm standing in this election. That's what makes me different. That's why we should be rejecting status quo and business as usual and opting for somebody who's going to bring people together collaboratively to deliver for us. And I also think, and I've said this time and time again because it is so important, that having those citizens' assemblies, having your voices heard as well as partners, is crucial in making sure that we're accountable to you. Not many people know about this election. The turnout will be incredibly low, and whoever does win will win by a very small percentage of 1.6 million people who can vote. I don't think that it's right that after 4 years you get to have another say. I think you should be part of that conversation. So that's why it matters to me that we do politics differently. I'm a young person, I'm a Green, and I've had to work collaboratively on my council as the Vice Chair of the Environmental Scrutiny Committee in North East Derbyshire to bring people together, different voices, different concerns, to ensure that we deliver for you. That's the job. That's what we're here for. Don't forget that. Thank you.
Claire.
A lot of talk about collaboration. I'm the only one who's actually been Chief Executive of the Institute for Collaborative Working. So from that perspective, I really do have the experience of how to bring together partners across political boundaries, across organisational boundaries to work on a common purpose. And let's be really clear, this is a role that is about that leadership skill, but it's also about credibility. And the credibility to deliver on the basis of a track record. Now, Ben talked about HS2, but the reality is the week before it was cancelled, he was on the television telling us he was absolutely confident it was going to happen. And therefore, there is a certain amount of credibility that we need for the delivery of things here in this region. And I think that leadership that's not just about politics, but is about business and about public sector is hugely important too. And out of this, Matt is the only other person with some business experience who's actually worked in that world, who knows how to make things work in that respect. And that's hugely important because much of the investment that we're going to be looking for is going to be dealing with businesses. Now, we've all talked about the different aspects of the role, and whoever is elected as mayor is going to get those roles and responsibilities. The person who can make the most of them is that person who has those leadership credentials, who has that experience, and who has that credibility to deliver. And I believe that I am the only candidate right across that 30-year experience who can do that.
Thank you. Well, we've come to our final question, and I'm going to take a slight liberty here in trying to bring 3 questions into one, but I can do that, I think. So it's really your summary question. You've got 2 minutes each, and it's really to say, what is your kind of vision for a mayor for here that's going to support the local people of Broxtowe and surrounding areas of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire? And let's start with Ben. Go through it, Ben. 2 minutes.
A good way to wrap up, and I think this is a real game changer for us in terms of our infrastructure and our public services. We've got all sorts of challenges. It's been an incredibly difficult period, politically and economically, for a lot of reasons over the last few years, and there are all sorts of things that don't work. And so I've spent the last year, 18 months, 2 years negotiating solutions. I said I got into politics to fix the bins, and I've always been the kind of person who wants to find solutions. I'm not somebody who will go and point at a pothole and take an angry picture and complain about it. I'm somebody who's going to find the answers. And so I've been away, and I've found the funding, I've found the powers for us to develop solutions to these problems. So my vision for the future is one where we can deliver in very short order massively significant investment in road resurfacing and improvement in our region, where we can work with our bus companies on integrated transport systems across bus and rail, so you can tap on and off the network, so you can get from here to the middle of the high peak and go on a walk-in weekend in the Peak District on one ticket that goes on all services, that gets you around effectively and efficiently, where we can work with business to be actually less reliant on taxpayers' money, but to harness the power of business investment to create job opportunities, to create training opportunities, to regenerate the city and our high streets where there are significant economic challenges. And I don't say that as a whim. It's easy to stand here and say, I will make things better. But I work with businesses on a regular basis on those major projects. I'm developing clean energy solutions. I'm working on business investment into key sites around our region. I speak from experience when I say that we can deliver these things. And that means that in the future, our young people won't feel they need to leave and go somewhere else in order to get a great job, that we collectively can have we can be more affluent as a region, we can have a town centre we want to go and shop in and work in and visit, and we can deliver that with the new powers and funds that we've secured. But we have to have a mayor who understands how these structures work. It's easy to say I'm very passionate, but actually, if you start on day one and somebody says, how are you going to pull all these things together, Mr. Mayor, and you've got no idea what you're on about, you're going to cause some problems. So it's a big opportunity. I thank you for your time today, and this is a really, really important choice to make sure we get the right experienced person to lead this organisation.
Thank you. Frank?
Yes. Keep us on our toes. I'm offering you something different, and that's what we so desperately need. Business as usual has failed, the established parties have let us down, and whoever is your mayor will have to work cross-party, and I have a track record of doing that. I'm proud to do that, and I want to continue to bring people together for our mission of a green industrial revolution. We have to be bold, we have to be ambitious. I've said from the start I want to end homelessness, bring people off our streets, make sure that everyone has somewhere to live, because those people on our streets, people just like me and you, who've fallen foul of the financial chaos that the Tories have thrown us into over the last 14 years. That has to end, and that only ends with someone who's prepared to stand up for our communities. I will invest in clean, renewable energy, making great green jobs for people across our region. I'll make sure that there are homes for people to live in that are sustainable and affordable. We talk about young people wanting to leave our region. Well, I am one of those young people that is so often talked about. I want to be part of the conversation to make sure that our region is in the right place for our future. It's not good enough to have those that have failed us for years and years and years to come in and continue to do business as usual. We need something different, we need collaboration, and we need investment. That's what I'm offering. We do that under the banner of a green industrial revolution. It galvanises business, it sets a challenge. We achieve that challenge through our education, through our housing, through our transport, connecting people digitally, making sure that everybody has an opportunity to take part. Some of you might be scared of voting Green in this election. You might be scared of voting for someone different. I would tell you that that is absolutely the thing you must do. You must vote for change. You must vote for someone different. Otherwise, we'll be sat here in 4 years' time having the same conversation.
Thank you very much. Claire.
This is our chance to grasp the future of the East Midlands, and I'm asking for your support, not just as the Labour candidate, because I think that my values, my experience are right, but because I can bring this to reality here in this region. So I want affordable homes, ones that are sustainable, that helps us to keep our young people and others in the community. I want to unlock the brownfield sites so we can use those for development. I want to see more support and schemes for those who are the most vulnerable in our society, including our veterans, many of whom will live across Broxtowe at the moment and find challenge to get their own homes. And I want to tackle homelessness by bringing together those organisations who are already involved in it in the same way as I've already done by working with Baroness Louise Casey, who is an expert in this field. I want to make sure that we've got the best jobs and the best skills. So I'll work with the local colleges and providers so that we get the right skills matched with the right jobs in those places. And I'll work with the NHS as well, so that we introduce a skills check. When people get their health checks, they will also be offered a skills check to make sure people are fit and healthy and ready for work. I'll make sure that we bring the best investment, not just national investment, but international investment, into our green energy, smart, clean, green, to take us into the future, not just based on our heritage of coal-fired power stations and mining, but a future with a green growth fund that invests in those skills for retrofitting our homes and for making us the greenest place to live. I'll support biodiversity and nature by establishing an expert panel of those who are already doing good work across our region and getting them to share with us their best examples of what else the Mayor can do. And finally, I'll launch a Visit East Midlands, because we have such wonderful heritage here, great tourism, and it unlocks so much of our local economy. And I'll make the best of our creative talents here too.
Thank you. Finally, Matt.
Yes, so this is a massive opportunity for our region. It is in many ways far more important than the general election, because the Mayor is going to be covering a much broader area than any MP will, and will have powers over a huge budget that needs to be carefully spent and carefully managed across the region. Ben talks about the relationships that he's got. I already have these relationships too. I'm already working across all of these parties, all of these bodies across this whole region. I know from day one who to go and talk to about what item. Claire talks about credibility. I'm the only one who's got the track record of going and unlocking significant funds from the government. I've got track record of working with partners and track record of delivering projects around skills, around education, around regeneration of our towns. I've got experience with delivery of highways contracts across the UK, of transport ticketing. I have the credibility to do this job really well. Frank talks about independence and the environment. Well, I am the independent candidate. He's still a party member. As much as he will claim that he's independent, he is part of a party structure. I only answer to you. I have nobody trying to influence me on what to do for the region. I can agree with when it's the right thing to do. I can disagree when it's the right thing to do as well. And I only need to listen to your input on all of that. And environment. Frank talks about green revolution. We've got to do something about climate change. We've got huge areas of our counties that get flooded. We've got worse weather conditions coming. We've got to get on with that, but we've got to get on with that in a way that is acceptable and understandable and affordable for people and businesses. And I've got the innovative thinking to deliver that so that we can actually get on with genuine change for this, rather than just talking about it, which has gone on for too long. So if you want a positive change this May, vote independent, vote Matt for Mayor, so that we can actually deliver the things that this region needs so desperately. And if you want to find out more about me, go and have a look at mattformayor.uk, or I'd love to talk to you after this. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Well, give them a round of applause. Thank you, everybody. We do appreciate all the candidates, well, most of the candidates coming, and being able to be kind of quizzed and everything else. They're going to stay around for a bit. I know some of them got to rush off in a moment, but stay around for other questions you might have. But again, thank you for coming. Thank you, of course, all of you for coming. And please make sure everyone knows about the election, that you know that there is a good turnout, and that whoever is our mayor knows that we're serious about holding them to account for what they promised to deliver. Thank you. So, candidates, please feel free to mingle. I'll get some more hot water available for
Yes. Oh, right.
I'm here.
Thanks for organising that.